All right, it is 6:30. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Can we do a roll call, please?
Christian. Here. Jeske.
Here.
Bowles. Oster.
Here.
Souter.
Here.
Whittington.
Here.
Halliday.
All right, thank you. If you would, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. The mission statement for this board is providing an exceptional learning community which inspires the whole child through excellent instruction, every student, every classroom, every day. Looking for a motion and a support to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion. I'll support.
Motion by Whittington, supported by Christian. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor with the raise your hand, aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Looking for a motion and a support to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion. I'll support.
Motion by Christian, supported by Oster. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor with the raise your hand, aye. Aye. Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. I'll go to student and staff recognition.
All right, before we move on into my normal recognition, I would like to have the board help me give a warm welcome to Ryan and Audrey. We've just hired the both of you officially, so I appreciate your patience through the interview process, and coming out on top is our new social worker, new band director, so I'll give you an opportunity to come around, shake hands with the board, so you get to pick who starts and get your 5 minutes.
Hey, we could have invited them earlier.
That's right.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What'd you do to your hand?
Too much clear that count.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you.
Jolene.
Okay.
All right.
What did Jeff tell you?
She took the paper.
Nice.
I want your picture.
First encounter with Chris.
There you go.
That's small town.
Yeah.
Well, Audrey, I think for you, this is a homecoming in a way, right? Welcome back. That's exciting. I've heard so many good things about you, and I know Jeff and his whole staff in the building and the district are all happy to see you back. And Ryan, you definitely came out on top of your interview group, and it was so fun. Jeff and Alicia, our principals, have kids in the middle grades, and it sounds like they were both part of experiencing some of your expertise with instruments, and you did some time at Collins and then over here. And I think you got a standing ovation after your playing interview, helping the kids come around. So we're super excited that we've got somebody who's going to take it to the next level. So it's good stuff. Welcome again to you both. Yeah. Cheryl,
Are you gonna stay for the whole meeting?
good timing. Good timing. You-
Get my good side.
There you go.
At least so close.
Right.
All right, good stuff. Let me move on to the rest of my student staff recognition. Kind of the flip side of this, want to recognize retirees Phil Baker, Vicki Conant, Chris Sura. Congratulations to all three on your retirement. Thank you again for your many years of service to the students of Hope Lake Community Schools. Congrats also to all of our graduates. This is my favorite time of year. We get to see our students cross the stage, celebrate their hard work, and demonstrate excitement for what lies ahead. Combined between community ed and the junior senior high here, we graduated right at 100 kids, and that's 100 potential. That's 100 springboards into the future. That's 100 opportunities, and they're all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and I'm pumped for them. I'm excited. Congrats also to the Houghton Lake Community School staff and administration for their hard work this year. Each year about this time, I sit here and I'm like, it really did feel like that. I mean, it felt like we were just doing open house and then just going out on Christmas break, and then bam, here we are. We've wrapped up another year. It's funny how it happens. A year flies by and I don't even get a year older. I don't really know how that works. But we really have had a great year. We've improved metrics in the academics, co-curricular, and extracurricular participation and achievements. So a big thank you to all of our staff and support staff for everything they do to teach and support our kids. That is my student staff recognition.
Thank you, Ben. Public comments. Do we have any public comments out there tonight?
I lied, Brian. I lied. I'm going to talk.
Okay. All right. Do you want me to read the thing?
No, I'll keep it under 3 minutes. I promise. You won't have to censure me. I really just want to express how excited we are to have Audrey and Ryan here. We cast a really wide net on our band when we were going through our band process. We talked about it being one of the pillars of our school, and with Phil retiring, we knew like this is going to, while it's both devastating to lose Phil, it's also an opportunity for us to look at kind of reshaping things. We look for a lot of outside help in vetting this. Like obviously Chad and I are not musicians, and so we're going to need some support through this process. And when we did our vetting process, and then we did our first interview, this guy had just an outstanding interview. And then when he came back and met with our kids, there's excitement right now in our band. They're excited about Mr. K coming in, Preston running over. The guy who was showing me the instruments today might be our band director. They were fired up, and so. And really the coolest thing was Phil's I can retire now. And so that was exciting. Audrey here, about to go round 2. Audrey was part of when I was down at Community Ed. Audrey and I had a day that in my career will never be forgotten, in which you don't always get opportunities to know how powerful your job is until you literally watch somebody actually save a life in a day. And so when we found there was this mutual desire to bring her back to Houghton Lake. We had some other applicants. They were great on it. We sat in a couple of really good social work interviews, but it was pretty clear if we were going to have a homecoming, it was going to be a great fit. So excited what this means for Houghton Lake, and just did not want to miss an opportunity to drag these two up. So all right, I'll sit down now.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other public comment? All right, we will move on to presentation on the 2025 to 2029 strategic plan.
All right, I texted, while Jeff was chatting, I texted Scott. I let him know earlier today we would give him a moment's notice before we queued him up, so let's see if he's ready to go.
It's so crazy to say 2025 to 2029. That's wild.
Hey Scott, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I sure can. Welcome, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Turn you a little bit. Can you see the room pretty well?
I can.
All right. We can see you pretty well. That was good timing. You were in the queue, and we're ready for you to take it away with our strategic plan.
Well, that's exciting. Just a few points. I'm not going to read the whole plan to you guys and go through it. You've been involved in it. I just want to highlight a couple of things and some things to think about going forward. But just first to thank the board for choosing MASB and me to do this process. It's always fun to work with you guys. You have great people, great community, so it's always a pleasure to come up here and work. We've been through this process. You started with the conclusion of last plan. We did the surveys. We had a retreat, 9-hour retreat with 25 people. I met with your administrators in that room a couple weeks ago to start working on the implementation stage. And then we come to tonight, which wraps up the first stage of this process. Now the real work is coming forward. What we want to do on the implementation is, I work with Ben and his team. They have a process now that they can work through for each of the goal areas as they get going. Unfortunately, the day I was there was the last week of May, and all heck was breaking loose with the end of school year. So we did work for a number of hours, but it was hard with all the disruptions. So they'll keep working, and I'll be available to work with them going through. You should have 3 different documents. You have a 2-page strategic plan, which you guys can put right at your place when you're at the meeting. A full summary, which is 18 pages. And that's a lot of the same information from the retreat through the process, and that'll be the document that you can post and really share for everybody to know what's going on. And then you have the presentation from tonight with some more information in it. I just want to thank all the community and the staff and everybody who came in and gave their time on that Saturday. It was a great day. They really were connected to your district. They really worked hard, which is exciting because that's not always the case. Sometimes it can get to be a free-for-all, but they stayed focused, and I think the product that came out and you see is very good. I think it's going to drive you for a long period of time. I want to thank Ben and his admin for their help in doing all the logistics and all that work. They did yeoman's work. Ben's been great through this process. So tonight we're just asking you to approve the vision, the mission, and the goals. That's it. That's as far as we go as the board. Action plans, implementation, objectives, that's all Ben's work. He can keep you up to date, but it's not something we have to vote on. So once you vote on it tonight, you're basically turning to Ben and saying, get it done. And you guys want to set up a monitoring plan so that monthly board meetings, you're talking about strategic plan, you're hitting updates, you're able to share stuff with the community at large, so that this isn't a one and done and we'll see in a year, thank you. It's got to be foremost so that everybody understands this is the document that's now leading your district. This is what the stakeholders, including the board, came up with as the focus for the next 5 years. So we want to make sure we're talking it on a regular basis. I encourage you to put it on at least one board meeting a month just to talk about it. It could be an update, it could be Ben giving you some news. It could be a full presentation from something that's already, well involved, and they bring somebody to present to you. That way we see the work going on. We always suggest in a year from now, bring all the team together, that 25 members, do it in an evening, about 60 to 90 minutes, and they get an update of all the things that have happened so far in the plan, what's the next year's plan work going to be, and they basically are giving thumbs up, thumbs down, that we're staying true to the plan. Now, things are going to change, and that happens, but we're not throwing the goals out because someone didn't like it. If we're going to change a goal, it better be with everybody's blessing, and there better be a big reason for it. Because if the board just arbitrarily changes them, you've undermined the whole stakeholder group who gave their time and energy to participate. So we want to make sure to do that. It's only an hour, hour and a half at most, usually in the evening. Sometimes it's Ben doing it. Sometimes it can be some of his administrators talking about the goal areas they're working on, just so the community and the staff and the board know what's going on. Once you approve it tonight, literally turn to Ben and say, get it done. We want an update on a regular basis. It's his job to get this done. It's our job to monitor it, and encourage, and sometimes poke and prod if we have to get this completed. But it's a strong tool. It's great work that you guys did when you look at the goals, your vision and mission. It was great work that was completed, and I think hopefully you're excited by what's to come from the work that's going to get done through the strategic plan. So I'll take any questions you may have.
mission statement, is that slightly different? We just have engagement twice in the last part of the sentence.
Oh, I have to double check. Good catch.
I think it is.
And then also on the operations and culture, some wording issues. Identify an implementation of a marketing plan. Would that be and implement a marketing plan?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, oh, so. Wait. Let's look at it, it's gonna be. Any other comments or questions for me? I take it the board's happy where they're at then, with no questions?
Yeah, I think on the whole, we're happy. I think we're gonna double check the wording on a couple things.
It was
but
community collaboration is the
community
picture that I have.
collaboration,
Mhm.
that sounds right.
A community, is it community or meaningful collaboration?
Community collaboration.
Community collaboration, thank you.
Mhm.
I'll get corrections sent up to the district first thing in the morning.
Perfect. Okay. Any other questions for Scott? Ben, you have anything to add?
No, I don't. Thanks for sending up the updated version tomorrow. Appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thank you guys for everything you did. It's been a pleasure working with you. Look forward to working with you more.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you, Scott.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Scott.
No problem. Thanks, you guys.
Okay, we'll let Ben get back to his seat, and then we can hear the superintendent reports.
All right. So fortunately, our weather for the graduations was just phenomenal. Jeff and Heidi and their staff both did fantastic jobs at the ceremony. Everything went perfectly. Thank you. Another beautiful ceremony. Jeff somehow gets it about within 90 seconds of right at 1 hour, regardless how much is on, how many valedictorians, how long the speech is, somehow. It's just right at an hour, which I think is a bonus on your annual eval. Well done.
Appreciate it.
Last week, we had the Hope Lake Sex Ed Advisory Board meeting. This was the second and final meeting of the year. We were able to thank outgoing co-chair Sarah Patty for her service as one of the co-chairs. She has to step down now that her son has graduated. And we welcome Sarah Armstrong on, filling her shoes. She's the new co-chair. As one of the requirements is one of the two co-chairs has to have a student enrolled in the district. And so Ms. Armstrong will be able to serve in this capacity for many years. Ms. Armstrong will be serving along with Amy Bonico for the 25-26 school year. The district reached tentative agreements with both the HLEA and HLESPA bargaining groups. I want to thank leadership from both of those teams for their collaborative work. I want to thank Leanna as well for her careful analysis and budget projections throughout the process. After the tentative agreements are approved later on this evening, we will post the new bargaining agreements on the district website. This concludes our bargaining for this year. Next spring, we will kick off the bargaining with our Teamsters and the bus driver group, so looking forward to that. State school budget update, two things. First, Leanna and I are hearing, as are all districts, that it will probably be late July, maybe even into August, before a final budget is completed there in Lansing, just due to the nature of the process and some of the disparate positions they're still working from. We are budgeting conservatively, as we always do. We'll be ready for this either way. and we're in a good position. Second, and pretty interestingly, a recent proposal for the upcoming school year included a recommendation for an unprecedented and massive increase from $96.08 per pupil to $12,000 per student. It's a 20% increase. The way this would be achieved is by collapsing just about all of the categoricals that districts receive, so that all the money would then be lumped into one pot without any categorical restrictions. So for example, currently districts who receive the transportation funds, like we do, can only spend those funds in the transportation department on parts, oil, gas, buses, that kind of stuff. When we get our at-risk money, we can only spend those funds on things that are allowable at-risk expenditures, so on, so on, so on. So there's many categoricals, but they each carry restrictions, and many of them also carry grant oversight with audits. While the elimination of all these categoricals and all the details is not really clear about how many and which would be eliminated, Leanna did some quick math, and by eliminating the 5 largest and most lucrative categoricals that Houghton Lake receives, and just assuming those dollars went away, and in replacement of that, the $12,000 per pupil came in, we would be ahead by about $400 per pupil if this new formula were pushed through. So all that sounds really good so far. Here's the bad part. The big problem with this is you have to look a little deeper behind what then happens in comparison, the equity piece between wealthier and more impoverished districts. We are not in the wealthier category, as you all know. Here is a stark example. So Houghton Lake Community Schools receives 10% of our total annual budget from 31A at-risk funds. That's one categorical. So a little over like 1.5 million, 1.48 is at risk. Our budget's around 15 million. So there's your 10%. However, districts like Novi, Bloomfield Hills, Saline, some of them receive less than 0.5% or less than 0.1% of their entire annual budget from at-risk funds. Much wealthier district, they have a much smaller at-risk fund pot. So if you were to think about that proposal above and look at it through the lens of equity, if you evaporate and collapse all these categoricals and everyone gets the same $12,000 per pupil, what that would mean for Houghton Lake is we'd get about 400 more per pupil. Saline, Novi, Bloomfield Hills, I could go on, get 1,900 to almost 2,000 more per pupil. So further disadvantaging the districts that already are working our way up from the bottom and increasing that inequitable spread. So I've been working with superintendents in the area. We have representatives on the school equity caucus. We're making sure we're messaging the unfair nature of this proposal. We are hearing our feedback is being listened to, which is nice. And we've heard that there is, amongst some of the subcommittees, some discussion about hold harmless formulas and ways to consider for districts that receive proportionally larger amounts of at-risk funds, what that means were those to be collapsed, and how to create some hold harmless bands or thresholds to maybe make that funding model more equitable. I think that's going to be much too much for anybody to figure out between now and August. So I don't think it's going to get off the ground. But I did want to mention it because it was so kind of out of left field. Nobody saw it coming. We are sticking with the original, conservative budget projection of the 10,000 per pupil, so the 9608 up to 10. One is 10, one's like 10,008, one's a little higher. But this 12,000 personally, I don't think is going to get off the ground because of those issues. But we will see. So either way, it would need more money. The disadvantage would be the equity piece. And the original increase is about the 400 anyway. But I would much rather have it that way and maintain better equity because we do get that, those at-risk funds, and we're quite good at spending them within the allowable parameters. So yes, it does take staffing oversight, but it's not a model we're unfamiliar with. So that is my update.
Okay. Any questions for Ben on his updates? All right, hearing none, we'll move to finance report. We got some budget highlights for May.
Yes, we only had on your expenditure report, 330. The community activities was the only one that was over by $66. That'll be corrected on the next budget amendment, which will happen on June 23rd. I am working on finalizing the 24-25 budget and also preparing the 25-26. We'll have that for you at that meeting.
Great, thank you. All right, looking for a motion and a support to move into closed session for the purpose of collective bargaining strategy under the Open Meetings Act, Section 8C.
I'll make the motion. I'll support.
Motion by Christian, supported by Oster. Can we do a roll call vote, please?
Whittington,
Yes.
Souter,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Jeske,
Yes.
Bowles, Oster,
Yes.
Halliday.
Thank you. We will
Noma, some kind of Noma.
All right, we are back in open session at 7:53. Looking for a motion to support to approve the closed session minutes as reviewed in closed session.
I'll make the motion.
I'll support.
Motion by Oster, supported by Christian. We do a roll call vote, please?
Oster,
Yes.
Bowles, Jeske.
Yes.
Christian.
Yes.
Souter,
Yes.
Whittington.
Yes.
Halliday.
Thank you, motion carries 5-0. That brings us to action items. Action item A, looking for a motion and a support to approve the HLEA 2025 to 2027 tentative agreement.
I'll make the motion. I'll support.
Motion by Christian, supported by Oster. Any discussion? Hearing none, can we do a roll call vote, please?
Jeske.
Yes.
Bowles, Oster.
Yes.
Halliday, Whittington.
Yes.
Souter,
Yes.
Christian.
Yes.
All right, thank you, motion carries 5-0. Looking for a motion and a support to approve the HLESPA 2025 to 2027 tentative agreement.
I'll make that motion. I'll support.
Motion by Christian, supported by Whittington. Any discussion? Hearing none, can we do roll call vote, please?
Souter,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Jeske.
Yes.
Whittington.
Yes.
Halliday, Bowles, Oster.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, motion carries 5-0. Looking for a motion and support to adopt the following resolution as indicated on the 2025 tax rate request L40294. To levy the following ad valorem tax rate for the Houghton Lake Community Schools for the year 2025 on the summer tax roll, general fund operating non-PRE in the amount of 8036, sorry, and debt millage of 0.5.
I'll make the motion. I'll support.
Motion by Christian, supported by Whittington. Any discussion on this one? Hearing none, can we do a roll call vote, please?
Bowles, Jeske.
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Souter,
Yes.
Whittington.
Yes.
Halliday, Oster.
Yes.
Thank you, motion carries 5-0. Looking for a motion and a support to adopt the following resolution, to authorize the Houghton Lake Community Schools Board of Education Secretary and President to sign the summer L4029 tax rates request for Houghton Lake Community Schools for 2025.
I'll make that motion. I'll support.
Motion by Whittington, supported by Christian. Any discussion? Hearing none, can we do a roll call vote, please?
Oster,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Jeske.
Yes.
Bowles, Souter,
Yes.
Whittington.
Yes.
Halliday.
Thank you, motion carries 5-0. Next up, we are looking for a motion and a support to approve the 2025 to 2029 Houghton Lake Community Schools Strategic Plan.
I'll make that motion.
I'll support it. Any discussion on this one? Hearing none, can we do a roll call vote, please?
Christian,
Yes.
Jeske.
Yes.
Oster,
Yes.
Bowles, Halliday, Whittington.
Yes.
Souter.
Yes.
Thank you, motion carries 5-0. Looking for a motion and support to approve the Open Up Resources Bookworm ELA curriculum in the amount of $49,000 from 35J grant funds.
I'll make the motion. Support.
Motion by Christian, supported by Oster. Any discussion on this one? Hearing none, can we do a roll call vote?
Whittington.
Yes.
Halliday, Oster,
Yes.
Bowles, Jeske,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Souter,
Yes.
All right, motion carries 5-0. Looking for a motion to the support to approve Open Up Resources Bookworm ELA curriculum, the amount of $18,673 paid out of title funds.
Make the motion.
Support.
Motion by Souter, supported by Oster. Any discussion? Hearing none, can we do a roll call vote?
Souter,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Jeske,
Yes.
Bowles, Oster,
Yes.
Halliday, Whittington.
Yes.
Thank you, motion carries 5-0. Looking for a motion and a support to approve the Runyon Pottery Supply quote for a new kiln in the amount of $6,435, $4,245 coming from RCCF grant, and the balance will come from general fund.
I'll make the motion.
Support.
Let me give Oster support. Any discussion? Hearing none, can we do a roll call vote?
Christian,
Yes.
Jeske,
Yes.
Bowles, Oster,
Yes.
Halliday, Whittington,
Yes.
Souter,
Yes.
Thank you, motion carries 5-0. Looking for a motion and a support to approve Northern Seal Coating estimate for Collins parking lot, the amount of $9,920, and that is out of the general fund.
Make the motion.
Support.
Motion by Souter, supported by Whittington. Any discussion? Hearing none, can we do a roll call vote?
Whittington,
Yes.
Halliday, Oster,
Yes.
Bowles, Jeske,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Souter,
Yes.
All right, thank you, motion carries 5-0. And last action item tonight, looking for a motion and a support to approve the Superior ground cover quote to resurface the Collins Playground in the amount of $5,980 paid out of the general fund.
I'll make the motion.
Support.
Motion by Christian, supported by Souter. Any discussion on this one? Hearing none, can we do a roll call vote?
Jeske,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Souter,
Yes.
Whittington,
Yes.
Halliday, Oster,
Yes.
Bowles,
All right, thank you, motion carries 5-0. That brings us to discussion items. The first discussion item we have on for tonight is discussion on valedictorian and salutatorian. I've been fielding comments about this for a couple of years now, about a desire to go from having multiple of each down to just number one, number two kind of thing. So I said we would bring it up at the table and talk about it. So I guess I'm looking for opinions, solutions, comments, what we're possibly looking at making a change here. I think we've been in the current model we're at now for probably close to a decade, if not a little over, somewhere around there, I think.
I know it's been a topic of conversation for a number of years, you know, the multiple valedictorians and salutatorians. And I mean, I look at it as, you know, most school districts have a valedictorian and salutatorian, and it's there. And I know we got into a situation where we ended up doing this current model, but I think it's time to retro back to a first and a second place as there is with everything.
So I mean, the bigger discussion would be, what are the parameters for that?
I think it's GPA followed by SAT or ACT scores would be your,
Because right now, I mean, GPA is 4.0, that's, I mean, all four of them would have had 4.0. So if you, I mean, academics, that'd be my concern, I guess, is it would have to be strictly academics. I understand your idea behind having a top, having a second. I'm not against it, I think it maybe have to be kind of grandfathered to a degree. I mean, if you've got kids that are working going into their junior year, and then all of a sudden we're saying, we're changing the program here, so even if you've got a 4.0, that's not you, you know.
I think it's safe to assume and discuss that
this would not be an immediate change. This would be a down the pipe change, I think. We would have to ease into this change if we made anything.
Because you have to talk about advanced classes and AP classes and things like that too, right then?
Well, you would have a couple
Yeah,
ways,
weighted.
in order to figure out who's your row number one. You could either do it with weighted grades, or you could do it with a tiebreaker, like a test or a growth metric everyone has to take. An SAT could be your tiebreaker. I mean, it would be pretty hard, although it could happen. What would be your second tiebreaker? If you had two 4.0s, both with 1,200 SATs, then what's next? So, you would need some metrics that you would establish to make sure you never had a tie. Or you might say, no, in that case, we have two. Like that year, we would just have two, because that's pretty cool. But if you truly always wanted one, you would need that extra layer of a tiebreaker. I don't recommend weighting grades. That was what you were doing 12 years ago when you went away from it and went back to this model now. In order to have a model that weights grades that really works, you have to have a robust honors program in English, Math, Science, Social Studies. You have to also have AP program weighting. You have to figure out what you're doing with the kids who take college courses. And right now, our kids take them all for credit, no credit, not a grade. There's no reason for them, there's no incentive for them to take that class for a grade. Matter of fact, there's a disincentive. So if you get a B in college, you no longer have a 4.0. But because we allow them to take all those college classes for no grade, they're going to. Which begs the question, did they all get C's? We don't know. What we do know is they passed. And so if you're really trying to if you want to encourage that, you got to be careful. You don't want to make them take it for a grade, because you might then erode your dual enrollment program. So I think going back, keeping it simple, avoiding weighted grades, which might have been, I wasn't here, but might have been part of the concerns that happened last go round, because I heard it was a decimal issue going out to 4 decimal points, and there was some dispute about the calculation. And then, hurt feelings, or people felt like my number 3 should have been number 2, or whatever. Whatever it is that you went to, you would want your first and second layer tiebreaker to be something everyone has to do and easy to understand. An SAT is a natural. Everyone's going to take it. And you would want to build in some qualifying language, like it used to be everyone took the ACT until SAT won out. So you would have to provide a little asterisk in there and say, if this is the test for all juniors in the state of Michigan, this is the tiebreaker, SAT or ACT. Currently, it's SAT. Not everybody takes the ACT, so you couldn't use that. If you wanted a backup plan, or a second tier, you could probably do something with NWEA group, pre and post in English and math courses. I mean, that would be a measure every kid took. So I certainly think it's doable. I think you could come up with a plan that would be understood, would not require very complex weighting of grades when we don't have honors classes in every department, and we don't have multiple, levels of AP courses in every department. So I think that would do it. And you would probably almost never have 2 people with a 4 point, both a 1340 SAT. That's hard to imagine.
And I know staff would cover this, but first round SAT, obviously, because
Yes.
kids retake those tests.
Sure.
Just to improve their college standing, so.
Yeah. And it would be the state test day. So
okay.
you could take it as many times as you want.
Right.
But you wouldn't want to advantage someone versus, because you're going to pay for those extra
Right,
ones.
right.
You get the one for free, but you wouldn't want to say, oh, you had the resources to take it 7 times and you did.
Right.
So, yeah, you would have to establish
From the state
all those-
testing day.
Yep, all those criteria. So, I think if the board was interested in doing that, and back to the grandfathering, if that was a change the board wanted to make, would you look at, like 4 years out, would you say, okay, class of 2029, you're the first year. So incoming freshmen, here's the new plan. Or incoming juniors, like you're talking about. Because some of these courses, the differentiating kind of tracks aren't really going to hit robustly until you start thinking about honors or dual enrollment or AP or career tech ed, or some of the things that are going to expose you to different learning.
So really, it's more like 3 years out.
I think if we were to go that way, I'd be more comfortable with incoming freshmen. So starting their high school career, they know this is the metric and this is how it's working. I mean, that's just my personal
I think
thought.
there's nobody who's gonna argue against that, yeah, because everyone now they understand it and they can schedule it. And I don't know, I think it was 2013, does that sound right, Ryan, 2013? Was that the year, or 2014, when this change happened?
I think it would have been 2013.
2013. So what I don't know is, when the change happened, did they just say, okay, in effect for next year, this is what we're doing, or did they roll it in over? We could go back and research.
I don't think you'd really have to roll it in going that way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because
It's
you were just opening it up
yeah.
for more people at that point. This is making it more restrictive.
Yeah,
I can support that.
Yeah.
if that's something that the board would like to see on an upcoming agenda, where you actually vote on the change, that would give the high school administrators and the counselors and I some time to look at some of those tiebreakers and kind of give you a proposal, if that's something you want to see.
Well, like I like that we've added in the luncheon and things, and that's still gonna hit all of those kids
Sure.
that are at
Oh,
that
yeah.
level. So they're still being honored and recognized.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But I do like
Yep.
the idea of your top one, your top two.
I think it's something if you guys would look into it and have discussions.
My only concern is we're taking what would have been, 6 kids this year that could have put valedictorian and salutatorian on different applications for fundings, financial aid, college applications, and now we're taking it down to 2. So there's 4 kids that can't put that on
Yeah, but do they
So
put
much
co-valedictorian on there?
Yeah,
I mean,
well, and
I
how
don't
much does
think
that
they need to.
affect? Their GPA
And I don't know
still
that it
gonna be
will,
the
but,
same. Yeah, I
mean,
hear what you're saying though.
So that's my only concern with it. I just don't wanna get in the business of taking opportunity away from any kids, but it goes the other side of it too, where, they, number 1 and number 2 may have more opportunities now too. So,
And a 4 point's still a 4 point,
Yeah.
even if you're number
Right.
3.
Yep.
It's still a 4 point.
I think that's mostly what
Yeah.
colleges are looking at is the GPA.
Well, they're looking
not
at
so much
the rigor of your coursework too.
Sure.
Like, did you challenge yourself and still get those good grades?
Yeah.
Yep.
okay, sounds like we've got a consensus and a starting point there. We can start looking at options for that, so.
Can we ask for his opinion?
I think we'll hear from him at some point. Next discussion item, we got Headley Hedge. Ben, you can go ahead and take this away and
Yeah, thanks.
discuss this with us.
So this happened, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. It's an unfortunate function of law when we have the odd circumstance of the inflation rate, the tax rate, and then the Headley Act kicks in and reduces the millage or the operational mills we collect. So last time this happened, we dropped down as low as like a 17.58. We ran a 1 mil Headley hedge, which we passed, which got us to 18.58, which then eroded to like 18.31, and then has trickled down over the years. And now for this coming summer, for this summer's collection, what we just approved up here in the action items, it's now, due to the Headley rollback, 17.8036. So Leanne and I looked at present level tax rates, and what that means, the difference between that 17.8036 and 18 is about 118,000. So when we get our summer tax collections in, we're going to be short about 118,000 because of this. We've got a couple opportunities as far as looking ahead. One is November to run a Headley hedge. One would be May of 2026. I don't recommend May because we would pay for it in full. I do recommend November because we would share the cost with Denton. So I've already been, I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, Denton Township's already contacted us. They have a ballot initiative they need to run. They were wondering, were we going to do something in August or November? At the time, I said, we're still planning, we're thinking, nothing definitive, and then this hit. And this looks like a natural partnership, if we were to want to do that. If the board is kind of unofficial, this is discussion, not action, but if you were like, yes, this makes sense, then Leanne and I will start working with Troon to prepare draft ballot language, prepare notifications, get all that to you for board approval. Our deadline to get it on the November agenda is August, so we have plenty of time for us to bring this even as soon as the next board meeting in June and into July. So you would look at draft ballot language and all that. We have talked to PFM, our bond manager. We've also talked to Troon already. They're recommending a 2 mil hedge, just based on some of the taxable value increases certainly around the lake, and the fact that we have a 5-year, and after this summer, 4-year operational millage that expires in 2029. They said just go for the 2, take it up to that 19 point whatever, and even if you suffered as large a headly rollback as you did this year, over the next 4 years, it trickles down and ends at like 18.21. You're still over the 18. We can only collect 18, so I mean, it doesn't matter what you run. But the bigger the number, the bigger the sticker shock, even though we will explain this isn't impacting your wallet, it sometimes is a bit ominous to see that on a ballot. So they're recommending 2, not 1, and the math works based on the largest rollback we've suffered in the last 5 years. So I like that idea. I like not having to do this every year or two. So I do like looking ahead to 2029 and protecting that through that point. And just as a reminder, this is, your average homeowner doesn't pay this at all. This is paid for by the non-homestead millage folks, the vacation home people, and the business owners. So certainly a business owner in town would pay this, but it's not an increase. It's what they've been paying at 18. It just gets us back to 18. Unfortunately, because it's dropped below 18, we have to put the word increase on the ballot. And that's a function of ballot language. But real dollars, as we message this to business owners, it's not an increase. It's what they've been paying. So the last time we had to do this, it passed. We had a nice like 55, 56 to 45 margin. I think it was a pretty healthy margin. I don't anticipate major issues messaging that. It's something we've had to message before. So if that's something the board is interested in thinking about for November, then Leanne and I can start working on it.
I was gonna say, I think November's the easy choice
I do
because it's
too.
a shared cost.
Yeah.
I think we were faced with that kind of decision last time we did, and we opted to go for either the no cost or the shared cost option instead of the special balance. So,
Yeah.
I think the healthy margin it passed with is due in large part for the amount of communication we had with the community about it. So
Yeah.
I wanted to do that again, make sure it's very clear what we're expecting and what we're asking for and that kind of thing.
And we have, the good news is we have plenty of time. So
Mhm.
I wouldn't want to, and we've already passed the deadline to do anything in August, but this isn't something you can rush.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
Yep.
I agree with Brian.
Do we know what the expense would be to run with Denton? Our
I
share of
think
it?
it's Roscommon, isn't it?
Yeah, so
Oh, Roscommon Township?
I think it's Roscommon.
I think it's Roscommon Township,
Okay.
but I think it would split the cost. Off the top of my head, it's gonna save us probably 15,000. Because if we run the whole election ourselves, we're in the 36 range, 37. And if we partner with them, it may not cut it all the way in half, but it's gonna take a nice bite out of it. So it's definitely something to think about. I mean, you don't wanna have it all on our dime if we can avoid that. So,
Sounds like we've got consensus on that. We'll move forward with that and get the ball rolling. Next discussion item is just a quick FYI, kind of let everybody know already. We did confirm with MASB for the Leading with Civility workshop. We bumped the time a little bit. It's going to be at our August 18th meeting, and we are starting at 4 o'clock, not 3:30. And they're going to compress it all in 2.5 hours instead of 3. So that's going to be a hard cutoff for them, right? They'll have till 6:30 when our regular meeting starts to get all that information into us. And that'll function as our kind of return to school retreat for our board. So,
Do we know who's leading that training?
Some kind of Grand Rapids.
Yeah, it's not, we
it's
don't
a
get to
group.
pick the facilitator, it's somebody different that they have specifically for this training.
And I think it's a group that MASB has worked with before, so it's a team they have out of, is it Grand Valley State? Is that who it was with?
I think it was.
I think so.
Yeah.
was it-
Grand Rapids.
Yeah. But I think it might have been GVSU group, I can't remember.
It could be.
I think it
It's
is.
someone that they partner with
Yep.
who does this series.
Yeah.
Okay. That's in,
And we'll run that as a special before
Yeah.
the
Yes.
regular.
okay. We've got some upcoming, are there any other discussion topics before we move on? We've got some upcoming dates. Half-day last day of school is on Wednesday.
Unbelievable.
And with that, we are adjourned at 8:18.